reflect the core policies of the U.S. Department of Education. So we have two presenters today, myself, although I will only be here briefly, otherwise mostly working behind the scenes today, and my co-presenter, Kathy Houghton, who I am very excited to welcome today. I'm going to do a quick introduction of myself, and then I'm going to let Kathy introduce herself. So as I said, my name is Hannah Schlosser. I am a member of the LINKS project team. I work with AIR and am part of the LINKS project team, among other projects that AIR offers. Through the LINKS project team, though, I am very lucky to be able to be a part of presentations like this one and lead some state technical assistance opportunities. So with that, I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Kathy to do her introduction.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kathy Houghton. For my day job, I'm the executive director at Literacy New York. We support teachers and tutors and organizations that deliver adult literacy services in New York State. We're in Buffalo, New York, but I've been a LINKS trainer for probably 15 years, I think. It's been quite a while, and I've had the opportunity to meet teachers and practitioners from all across the country, and it's just one thing that I really, really enjoy doing. So Hannah.
Thanks so much, Kathy. And as I said, you're going to be mostly hearing from Kathy today, which is wonderful because as you just heard Kathy say, she is an expert, and we're so grateful to Kathy for being here and leading this webinar today. So we did some quick introductions on our end. I am going to just take a couple of minutes to provide an overview of LINKS in case LINKS is new for any of you. And then, as I said, I'm going to pass it over to Kathy to really help us dig deeper into the training for today, which is on how reflection informs and shapes teacher practice. And then we'll do a brief wrap up at the end. So I want to start with a quick LINKS overview. Before I do that, I'm just curious, we're not a big group, so you can also just unmute or put it in the chat, but have you heard of LINKS before, or is this the first time that you're hearing about LINKS? Susan, go ahead.
I'm sorry, first time for me. I've never heard of it before. And I was in the classroom since 1975. It's the first time I've ever heard of it.
Oh, I'm so excited that we get to share this great resource with you today then, Susan. That's wonderful. I'll be giving you a little bit of information about how you can access more of LINKS after our during our webinar, after our webinar today. So I'll share some of that with you today, but grateful to be gaining such an expert to our LINKS community. That's wonderful. Sandy, how about you? Have you heard of LINKS before?
I have not. I put it in the chat. I have not heard of LINKS.
Wonderful. Okay, two new people that we are excited to welcome to the LINKS community. I love it. Violina, and my apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, please feel free to correct me. Violina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. Violina, have you heard of LINKS before?
Not that I recall right now, but I've been before with the Burlington. I've been watching, but I would love to know or have a refreshment.
Wonderful. Okay, we can definitely do that. And Ballard, what about you? I'm sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly as well. Ballard, if you are able to unmute and let us know if you've heard of LINKS, that'd be great. Otherwise, you can add it in the chat too. All right, well, we will continue on. But Ballard, if you're able to unmute, just let us know. Otherwise, like I said, feel free to add it to the chat. So it sounds like we have some people who are new to LINKS, which is super exciting. It's a great resource for adult educators. So I am just going to talk about it briefly and share some links with you. So first of all, what is LINCS? LINCS stands for the Literacy Information and Communication System. And as I mentioned when I read the disclaimer at the beginning, it's an initiative of the U.S. Department of Education. Specifically, it's part of the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education. And the purpose of LINCS is to expand evidence-based practice in the field of adult education. This is primarily done through the LINCS website, which has these 5 components that you see on the screen. There's a huge community of practice, a learning portal, a resource collection, state resources, and a learner center. And I'm going to talk about each of these briefly in a moment. But the main thing I want to highlight here is that all of these components are high quality, they're evidence-based, and they've been developed or pulled from experts around the country. So it's really a great resource. No matter which one of these components, or if you use all of these components, they're really a great resource for you as adult educators. And the other best part is that they are all free and open access. So the first question, of course, is where do you access LINCS? What you can see on this screen is the home page, and I am going to paste the link directly for you into the chat so that if you want to bookmark this page for later use, you are able to get there. But this is the launching page. And if you look at the screen at the top of the window here, I'll try to move my mouse over it next to the home button. This is how you access those different components I was showing you on the previous slide. So you get to the community via this tab, the courses are here, our resource collection, and our state resources. So I encourage you to explore all of the components following our webinar today. I'm going to talk briefly about the state resources because that is how Kathy and I are here with you today. We are here because of the state resources side of the LINCS platform. So we have 3 tiers that we use to support states. The first is through Universal Technical Assistant, which is monthly webinars that are available to our state leaders. We also offer Targeted Technical Assistant, which is cohorts of states who participate together in specific training opportunities. And the last one is our intensive training, which is what this training is, where we can tailor technical assistance requests to specific states. And so that is how we are here today. If any of you happen to be working for the state office or you work for your PD system, this might be familiar to you, and you are the ones who are able to request this training for your states. If you don't work for the state office or for the state PD system, don't worry. There are still lots of opportunities for you to be able to get involved in learning through LINCS. And one of those main things is through the LINCS Learning Portal. The LINCS Learning Portal is an open access system. They're all free courses, and they're on topics that are important to you and that meet your specific needs as adult educators. They are available to anyone with a LINCS account. To create a LINCS account, it's free. You just have to actually sign up, get a username and password, and then you can explore our ever-growing list of learning courses that are available through the portal. I'm actually going to be highlighting a couple of them for you in a little bit because they're new and exciting and also related to the topic of this webinar. I also mentioned that we have a LINCS community. The LINCS community is a great place for you to interact with others from the field around the country on high interest topics and, again, needs that matter to you in the field of adult education. There are 13 groups. You can see the topics on the left side of the screen here. So, for example, we have a teaching and learning group. We have a math and numeracy group. We have a diversity, equity, and inclusion group. So you can join as many of them as you're interested in. They are all facilitated by experts in the field, and it's open to anyone who wants to join and be a community member here. You have access to events, free events through the LINCS community, and those discussions are all moderated by those experts I just mentioned so that you're able to get some great resources, share questions and ideas with each other as you engage in these communities. highly encourage you to go join a links community or two. I will post these links for you in the chat as soon as I pass it off to Kathy in a moment. So if you want to use your phone to grab those QR codes, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I will put these links in the chat for you. All right, and then I did mention that we do have a couple of new self-directed courses that I just want to advertise quickly because maybe they will interest you and be something that you want to join and get a links username and password. Remember, these are all free and they're part of that learning portal. So I'm going to talk briefly about project-based science instruction and opening your classroom with OER. But the third one on the screen here, motivating adult learners to persist, is perhaps the most relevant to all of you since that is the topic of our webinar today. So after Kathy piques your interest and really draws you into important topics and conversations today, when you're ready to learn more and go deeper, check out this new course, Motivating Adult Learners to Persist. You do it all through the learning portal. It's all at your own pace, on your own time, and again, it's free. So the other two, the first one was the project-based science instruction for career preparation, and it's designed to facilitate the teaching of science in adult education classrooms using the project-based learning model. So it makes connections between science content knowledge and how adults actually use science in their daily lives, especially in work and career-related contexts. And then the second one was that Open Your Classroom with OER course. And that introduces the wide variety of open educational resources, that's what OER stands for, that are available to adult education instructors. And that includes things like Creative Commons and other licenses. So instructors of programs will gain an understanding of how to identify and search for materials to use in their teaching practice. In addition to learning some of those strategies, they'll also help you evaluate whether those resources are appropriate for use in your specific context or not. But again, the third one, the Motivating Adult Learners course, that is perhaps of immediate interest for you all since it's so directly related to today's webinar. Okay, and with that, I have done enough talking about links. I am going to post some of those links, L-I-N-K-S, in the chat for you so that you can get to the links, L-I-N-C-S website more easily. But with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kathy to really help us dig into the content for today.
Great, thank you so much. And I will say I am a member of a lot of the links groups, and you can manage your emails so that you can have them all come in bulk so that you don't get emailed, with all of the posts every day. But being an adult educator is often an isolating experience. Sometimes you're the only person teaching that night, or there's very few people, that colleagues and culture. So the links online communities really offer you a chance to see what's going on all across the country with adult education. And it's really the only thing that's just built for adult educators. So I'm a big proponent of all of the links resources. So you want to go to the next slide, Hannah? So we've kind of talked about our overall agenda. Today, the specific agenda, we want to really look into a brief that is the driving research behind this workshop for today. All of the workshops that you get through links are connected to research and they're evidence-based. So we've talked about links resources. We're going to talk specifically about the Reflecting on Teacher Practice from the Kayla Network brief, and then some ideas for follow-up. So next slide. And we've already done our advertisement for links, so we'll go on to the next slide. And all of those have been dropped into the chat box too. So again, this is just, the resources that are available to you, and they are free of charge. So you want to go ahead, Hannah? So when we're talking about evidence-based professional development, so often the subject of improving teacher quality, improving teacher effectiveness is high on the minds of individuals who are involved in adult education. So I wanted to ask you guys, and if you don't mind turning your cameras on, that would be great. We are going to put you in a breakout where are going to ask for them on, but you could raise your hand. How many of you are teachers in the classroom? If you're a classroom teacher right now, if you can raise your hand, either raise it with an emoji or okay,
Sorry.
great. So if you're a teacher in the classroom, okay, so we've got a couple teachers in the classroom. How about an administrator, a teacher leader? Okay, some of you are working to work with your teachers to improve their practice. So this workshop certainly is relevant to you. And also full-time, part-time, who's full-time? You can raise your hand. Full-time, part-time teachers. Again, that's another area where we see a lot of isolation with our teaching, our cohort, because we're often part-time. We often don't have the time to develop the relationships with our peers. So these are some of the resources that are available in the links, in the links toolbox. If we can go to the next one and talk specifically about the resource that we're going to work with today. We are going to talk about reflective practice and professional development. I have to say, reflection is not one of my strong points. I am not a person who stops and reflects and writes, and I know I should be. And when I force myself to do it, I do see how I can improve my own practice, both as a trainer and as a director of my program here. I know a lot of times teachers, especially part-time teachers in adult ed, will say, we just don't have time for that. We don't have time to do this reflection. We're delivering the instruction, and then we're moving on. I hope that with what we talk about today, you can find a way to fit reflection into your practice and make that work for you. So Ballard, her audio is not working. Let me see. So, all right. And Hannah, if you can take a look at that, that would be great. So let's go ahead to our next slide. And the idea today is to look at the research that is supporting the information that we're sharing. And we do have, because we have 4 people, we can have 2 groups, right, Hannah? And so that they can work on these together. There's a brief that Hannah's going to share in the chat. And we're going to have you guys go into just 2 small breakout rooms where you'll be with one other person. And each room is responsible for reading one section of the brief. And this is a classic jigsaw activity where the part that you're reading, you will become an expert on that part and share with the other folks who didn't read that section. And then the other folks will read the other section of the brief and share with you. So you're going to read your assigned section. So we'll have group 1 would read section 1, group 2 will read section 2. And then if you can, because we know you have screens, not paper, we often, when I'm doing this in person, we can annotate with pens and markers and kind of highlight things. But we're hoping that you can use your highlighting and any tools that you have on your computer. We want you to point out those areas that are confusing still, that you might have some questions about. Point out those areas that look important in this research, and then anything that makes sense gets a green highlight. Then you and your peer who will be reading that section will talk about what you have in common, and then be ready to summarize what you read, sharing your yellow highlights and your red highlights with the larger group. We're thinking about 10 minutes for this activity. I'm hoping that we can solve the audio problems so that we can get full interaction. But Hannah, do you want to go ahead and create the groups?
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So I did just put the handout in the chat, and I just want to make sure before we put you in your rooms, is everyone able to open that handout? Can you try clicking on it and let me know? It's the Word document, and let me know if you have any issues opening it.
And remember, to get back to us, you just find that Zoom icon and you can click it. I used to get lost all the time when I would leave to look at a resource.
Zoom icon. I don't see a Word document.
I'll put it back in the chat for you again, so it's the most recent thing. So just give me 1 second, dropping it in right now. Oh, I have it open on my computer, so I have to close it. Hang on. All right, here it comes. Okay,
I got it. Sorry.
You got it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and you were able to open it?
It's loading right now. Okay, yes, I'm in Word.
Perfect. And then Ballard, you can just give me a thumbs up. Were you able to open it? Okay, excellent. Sandy, are you okay? Did you get that open?
Yes.
Okay,
I
and
can't open it. It's defaulting back to my own files.
okay, Susan, I'm gonna put a PDF of the same version in there in case this is easier for you to open. Sometimes, for whatever reason, the
Oh,
PDF.
and I got Windows 7. Oh, geez. I got an ancient dinosaur here.
The PDF might help. Try that version that I just sent you.
Okay, let me see.
And again, you're only reading half of this. Group one will read and stop at where the title practice begins, and group two will start at practice and work through the rest of the brief.
And I just wanted to show that really quickly. So what Kathy is talking about, group one, and you'll know because it'll say you're in breakout group one, you will be reading up to
It's right below research, I think. Yeah.
right here. So you're going to stop here. And then group two, you're going to start here and read through the rest of the brief. So you'll know that you'll know which group you're in once you're in your breakout room, but I just wanted to show that really quickly.
And again, the specific annotation is not tremendously important, just really if you can kind of pull what stands out to you, pull things that are a little confusing, you have questions about, confer with your partner once you've had a chance to read through, and then be ready to share with the larger group when we come back together. Does that all make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, great. And Hannah's going to be dropping you into breakouts, and we can come around and check in and make sure that everything's going okay.
Yes, let me get you in your breakouts now. Okay, so I am going to, Kathy, it's putting you in a room, sorry. It's because you're not listed as a co-host.
Exactly. I just
Okay.
won't.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms and you'll have about 10 minutes. And Kathy, my only concern is that first breakout room since Ballard doesn't have.
I know. I wonder if, do you know why that's happening?
She says that
She
her
can
IT,
hear.
yeah, her IT person is on. I suggested she call in, but I'm not sure if
And I
she.
can't visit rooms either since I'm not listed as co-host.
You are in room one. If you want to join the breakout room, it'll put you there. I can check on room two.
Okay, we'll give a few minutes for
Okay.
me. Then I'll hop in room one. That's a good idea.
Okay.
I just hope they have their cameras on so that they can
Talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It still seems clunky doing these online. I mean, we do so many of them now. I mean, 3 years ago, we wouldn't even, know how to do any of this, but
I'm going to share the instructions to the breakout rooms in case they.
sure. think I'm gonna pop in and see if they're moving forward.
Sounds good. I'll go to the other room. Kathy, do you want me to close the room at in a minute then, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Because we'll be reviewing everything in there. So
Yeah, group 2 probably hasn't gotten that far yet. So
yeah. Yeah.
okay, I will close it in a minute.
Yeah, I think we might have broken it into smaller chunks the last time because we have more groups.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they did
Yeah.
have kind of a bit to go through, but we will follow up on all of it. So
Yeah. Sounds good.
Oh, that'll be good. You guys are very well organized, which we appreciate. That's great. You guys are like a well-oiled machine, so
Yeah. And I think we're
very
getting
efficient when
information.
people are, busy prepping for the new program year. So it's good to have it be organized and
Good. I hope it's helpful.
oh, for sure.
All right, I closed the room, so everyone will be back in,
It should be coming
or
back.
starting to come back.
Okay,
Yep.
that's wonderful. Yeah. And we still wait. It looks like Ms. Ballard still is okay. She can hear us. That's good. And our other group will be heading back. They're just not ready to leave.
Kathy, I'll leave. I won't screen share until you tell me to.
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
can
we'll
see people.
maybe this is a life lesson for us. We should all be muted every now and again.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll just pull a couple points, then we'll move forward. There's Sandy and Susan, and so I think we're all back. Thank you so much. And I know there were some technical difficulties, but hopefully you got some points out of that research, and we'll be kind of focusing on the things that we think would be most important to you as we move through our next few minutes of presentation. So Violina, could you name maybe 2 things that stood out to you in section 1, the part that you were reading?
Sure. So they have a little bit of introduction, which just telling you what is about the recognition of this language education, how they teach, and how the teacher should be more focused on the reflection. Because Dewey, it's called an author, said there were actually some attributes of the reflective individuals, so which are to be open-minded, to be responsible, to be wholehearted. So just by those words, you can figure out what you were looking for to be a reflective teacher. Then what I liked, the other part, 2 things, is when you go down, let me reach the point.
Might have been research when you got
Yes, reflective practice. Before the research, that's where they say there are 2 types: one weak and one strong reflective person, a teacher. And then they say that the stronger version is when they say that teachers should collect the data about their teaching, examining their attitudes, beliefs, assumptions, and teaching practices, and use that all information as a basis for critical reflect about your teaching.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Those are really important points. And then Susan and Sandy, the other 2 folks did not read your section. So were there a couple things that stood out to you as important that you'd like to share with the whole group?
Well, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty there, so we were kind of like pushed, but thank you for helping. The one thing, and I'm not quite sure because we were kind of crunched for time, but I had a red flag go up a little bit. And that was based on recording the students and or video, recording and or videotaping and going back. To me, a red flag went up, lawsuit, get fired.
Yeah, you'd certainly have to, you'd have to have permissions. I'm sure there are releases that can be signed. So they were talking about recording yourself so that you could go back and look at your self
I
in
understand
teaching.
that, but you know,
Yeah.
having any
Oh, I
cameras in the
know.
classroom,
Yeah, yeah.
that to me is just, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. You know,
Certainly you always have to abide by your district and your guidelines there. Was there anything else that jumped out at you?
What I did like was one thing when I was we started to do the reading was about the research, the action research from Hong Kong, and how they had the students independent learning. And I thought that the results were excellent. But of course, I also took in consideration, you know, being an ESL, we have different cultures than we do here, but
Right.
a lot of them, then we're looking at a total culture submerged in that country. But I found that fascinating.
Good,
It was
good,
very good.
good. And Sandy, was there anything you wanted to add?
So one thing that stood out was collaborating with my coworkers,
Yeah.
and that I think is so important, and we need more. So share what works with me and doesn't work, and others share what works with them, and I think that gives it gives us different strategies to reach out to our students.
Exactly. That's a wonderful point. So if you want to go back to the slides, Hannah, we'll move forward. You guys brought up some really important pieces, and we're going to focus on those a little bit more. I do want to make sure that we're on the same page as far as defining reflective action. And there are some things that stand out in this definition: that it's active, it's persistent, it's careful consideration of any belief or form of knowledge. It's realizing the consequences of your beliefs and what you believe about your practice. And then the idea that we construct knowledge through engaging in the world, and that's a very old theory, and certainly something that we learn as teachers and practitioners. We also, when we think about our actions, we learn from our experiences, we seek the advice of others is always important, and digging down and not just accepting the surface meaning. I think those ideas are connected to constructivist theory, allowing us to become the makers of what it is that we're learning. And I think in teaching, taking the time to respect that, I think is really important. So next slide. And then we talked about, and Violina mentioned this, there's two types of reflective practice. There's the weak kind of reflective practice that I'm probably more apt to do because it doesn't take very long, and you just kind of get a little feedback and don't really work as well through it. And then the strong reflective practice is really intentional. You really want to dig into your practice as a teacher. It's active, you collect data, and the data helps you inform and make changes in your practice. So next slide. So we've already kind of talked about what we found interesting in the theory and the research, but can you again just maybe talk about why reflective practice is important for teachers, for administrators, and others? And you can either put something in the chat or just unmute and go ahead and share, since we're such a small group. Why is reflective practice important?
Can we just talk, or do you want it in
Yep,
chat?
no, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and just talk.
We have to reflect on every part of our lives,
Mhm.
because that's how we grow and that's how we learn. We have to look back. Is there something I can improve? Or
Mhm.
did I do it right? Hey, I can keep going forward with this.
That's a good point, Susan. Sometimes we're reflecting and it's not because of an error, but we found something that works.
Exactly.
So that's a really good point, Susan. And then
sometimes I reflect when it's evening before going to bed. It's just quiet, and I can reflect and see, like in a movie, I can see through my head through everything I thought, which was successful, or which should I just dump and not use it again.
exactly.
And just again going over the success and enforce it in my memory, so I remember this part was working. So probably I would just tweak or remodel it again.
Yeah,
and improve it in a way so it would
Yeah.
work for my students. I love that kind of.
That's a very good point. And then in the chat, to improve instruction, to reach our students effectively. I find it interesting that, I mean, reflective practice for administrators, how might that differ from reflective practice with teachers? What might be something that and we have a couple administrators, what could be some reflective work that administrators could do that would be beneficial to their role in adult education? Again, you can throw it in the chat. I know we have some folks that are not in the classroom. Setting standards for continuous improvement for teachers in the classroom. Very, very good point. So once we reflect on what's working, what's not working, it helps the whole organization, the whole system to improve. So we can go to the next slide. So there were 3 types of reflective practice that were talked about in the research. The first is journaling, the next practitioner action research, and the next teacher development groups. And we'll look at these one by one. Let's go ahead and move into journaling, Hannah. How many of you journal? Be curious. You can raise your hand. You can give me a thumbs up, or anybody use journals as a part of your practice?
I take small notes. I take notes in my where I have my lesson plans or reflecting. I have a reflecting, like a small part where I put reflections.
Okay, so that's a form of journaling for sure, and it's tied right to your classroom activity. So it's probably really good for you to see the connections there.
Yep.
Susan, did you have something?
No, I was going to say the same thing. I'll make notes, but I don't keep a journal. Last time I had a diary was like when I was 12. But yes, I do the same thing. If there's a notation, I put that in. So if I go back to the lesson or in the future with the lesson, it reminds me. It's a good reminder to reflect back.
Definitely. And as far as the reason we would journal, and again, it offers an opportunity for self-reflection. Going back to that constructivist theory, the teacher is the active knowledge producer. What you're journaling is what you've taken from the experience, what you've learned. You're not getting it from a book or a study or something. You're the active knowledge producer, and I think that's really important to highlight as well. And then it's going to highlight the relationship between you and your students and your practice. And it really can be beneficial. And Hannah dropped a handout in the chat. There's a nice journaling handout. I don't know if you want to pull that up real quick too, Hannah, so we can take a glance at it. So for active knowledge producers, then our experiences become our knowledge. And I think that's something to kind of hang on to. So here's what the handout looks like, and you guys can certainly keep it and have it for yourselves. It talks about the why, the how, and ends with questions to yourself. You can certainly journal with others. It's something that seems very private and personal in a lot of ways, but there are ways to use journaling to create community. But I do think the idea of making it doable, I know there's not a lot of time in your lives for this kind of thing. The idea of keeping your ideas short, keep it quick, and keep it immediate. I think keeping your journaling immediate is also really important. So anything on this journaling page that you wanted to focus on?
We're good.
Yeah, I think the questions do force you to kind of take a look at what it is you're doing. We can go to the next slide, Hannah. And again, this kind of parallels the handout. I know when I was in the classroom, if there was a teaching event that went really well, I didn't seem to focus on it. But if there was something that didn't go well, I would kind of dwell on it. And it probably wasn't as healthy as it would have been to journal about it. where I could kind of describe the event, what happened, kind of talk about what led up to it. Because sometimes things just flop in the classroom and it's something you think is really going to work. It just doesn't work. So kind of going through this where you're teaching, you're describing your event, what led up to your event, what was the outcome, the importance of it, and what does it mean to me as a teacher. And I love that last bullet. What 3 questions do I have about this event? So any comments about the journaling process described here? Okay, and we can go to the next slide. And again, this was on the handout as well. We can form community, we can create ideas. Your journal could also be a place where you chart your activities and your success. And I think sometimes we don't get a lot of feedback on how we're doing. I know we do get observed, you know, by supervisors, but if we can kind of be our own observer, I think that can help us improve our practice as well. So go ahead to the next slide. Practitioner action research is kind of a formal way of looking at an issue and kind of finding out about it and finding ways that it can serve you well as a teacher, as a tutor, as an administrator. Again, it's a systematic analysis of a problem. It's a review of what's been done. There's a whole process to it where you decide what your baseline is and what your goal is. So where you start and where you're going to end up, then you act, you try whatever it is you're going to try, and you collect the data about this activity that you did. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. I think we have a real quick video to show you.
And I am just gonna stop share really quickly because I realized it didn't share sound when I reshared. So reshare now. And we're gonna play this video for you.
Teaching is a craft. It's both an art and a science, which is why great teachers always experiment and make tons of mistakes. But how do you know what's actually working? Well, one option is action research. Here you can identify a question, test out a strategy, gather data, and determine if it works. The end result is something dynamic, innovative, and tied directly to your classroom. Action research dissolves the barrier between the participants and the researchers. In other words, the teacher actively participates in the situation while also conducting the research. There are many action research frameworks, but they generally follow a similar process. You start out in phase 1, planning for research. Here you begin with inquiry, where you define a specific research question. It needs to be something that can actually be tested. Next, you conduct a literature review to gain a deeper understanding of the topic. Finally, you move into the design process, where you determine your data methods, consider ethical issues, get the required permissions, create deadlines, and set up the systems. Next, you move into the action phase. This is where you engage in multiple cycles of experimentation and data collection. Your data collection might include qualitative data like observations, artifacts, and interviews, or quantitative data like rubric scores, surveys, or achievement data. Afterward, you move to analysis. You'll often start by organizing the data with charts or graphs and looking for specific trends. You might also discuss it with peers, free write in a journal, or create a cluster map before eventually writing out your results. Finally, you have your conclusion. This is where you share your research with the world and reflect on your own practice. This will ultimately lead to newer questions, and the cycle will continue as you refine your craft as a better, more creative teacher.
Thanks, Hannah. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll be talking about practitioner action research. So it's a quick overview of what practitioner action research is, and then this slide just is reminding us what it's not. It's not just informal thinking about how a lesson went, or just problem solving. It's really a scientific method that we apply to the work that we do in the classroom. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. When we look at the steps of PIR, and if you go back to to the brief that you read at the beginning, it actually lays out steps that are even more direct and a little bit more explained a little bit better, I think, than this. So it's question posing, it's planning, observing the intervention, and reflecting on the results. So when you go back to the brief, the first step is to identify the issue. Next, review the literature on the issue. Choose your data to be collected and the method of data collection. Collect, analyze, and interpret the data selected. Develop, implement, and monitor an action plan. So since we're a small group, we won't go back into great breakouts around this, but if you could put us all together on the screen, Hannah, I'm curious, how could you apply this kind of research and what some issues might be that would be good to tackle? So you can put us back in our people group, in our big group on the screen. So what would be any ideas of something that would lend itself to this kind of intensive study, anything related to your teaching in your life, in your teaching lives? Again, how could you apply practitioner action research? What's an issue that would be good to tackle? And I can give you an example from my teaching. I taught a lot of writing. I taught college writing, I taught developmental writing, and I taught the process for putting together a research paper. And I had it very, laid out. We in 13 weeks, we wrote one research paper. So every class session was moving us forward. I think I would, if I were still in the classroom, I'd like to take a look at that and see if that truly was the most effective way to move the students through the process of research paper, if the different activities, the way that I had set up our week to week lessons really built on each other well. I'd have to, again, there'd be plenty of literature I could review about teaching writing, the data to be collected. Maybe it would be scores on the research paper themselves, or even grades throughout on some of the mini projects that happen through the process of writing this paper, and then kind of take a look at if what I'm doing is an effective way to lead students through that process. So is there anything that you can think of that you might be able to use the practitioner action research on?
Oh, Kathy, I have a question for you based on what you just said. Sometimes just experience in the classroom, what works from one group to another or year to year does not work again.
That's a wonderful point, and that could be a data point. That could be something that you find out when you're involved in this kind of really looking at your practice. Really good point. Something that works for some might not work for all. Any other ideas of how you might be able to use this identifying an issue, reviewing the literature, choose what you're going to look at, and then collect the data?
Would perhaps maybe identifying or reasons why some students will, it might sound silly, will learn the second language quicker than others. And obviously it's more practice and they put more time and effort, but then some may put the time and effort and might not pick up the second language as quickly.
Right. And is the time and effort, is that what's leading those other students to success? Is that some data, that you could look at, or is it something else? Yeah, that could work. I think about persistence. Is there anything you could think about student persistence that you could apply this PAR to?
Yes, I have my coworker that teaches level 1, and her students show up almost every day. They show up, but they're level 1, but you have to look at their background. Some had no school, no schooling, so they're illiterate in both languages.
Right.
So sometimes that affects their learning. The second language. Right.
And their persistence in it. Anything else? Any other ideas? Either Susan or Violina, an issue that is big enough that you would take the time to really look into it. Hannah, I don't know if you have an idea as well.
Yeah, I was going to share an idea. Working with my lower level language learners, one of the questions that I actually did try PAR with was how to increase their oral output from single words to longer sentences, or even speaking for longer periods of time. And how do you help level 1 learners make that jump from single words to sentences and longer periods of speaking comfortably. And so then the question I asked was, what are the different strategies that support some learners to do these different things? And then who do those strategies work for and who do they not work for was my reflection on the results and the intervention. So that was at one time that I've tried PAR.
Cool. And again, I encourage you to go back to that original handout, because it really does lay out the steps just beautifully, so that you really could get a project together. If anybody's doing doctoral work or any kind of schoolwork, that this could be a really good project, a really good way to frame your work around adult education. So we can go back to the slides, Hannah, if you don't mind. And we'll move to our next slide. The third kind of research where we're reflecting is around teacher development groups. And again, that's a little more formal maybe than just talking to the neighboring classroom after your session is over, but it's really an ongoing forum. It's between at least 2 teachers, of course, but maybe some more teachers, to work and reflect on their own personal and professional development. It could be something that you do within your own program. It could be across programs or through a region, and it could be now, especially nowadays, in person or online. This is an area where links could support some teacher development. I know that I led a study circle of a group of teachers I think they were in Massachusetts, so that we were able to kind of look at some research together and work on our own professional and personal development as a group. This is something in the P12 world, they have the luxury of teacher coaches, and my sister actually is a coach for P12 teachers. And this is kind of what she does at the beginning of the school year. She'll create a forum with the new teachers, and they go through the year with this active teacher development group. Again, our world is a little different than P12. It's a little more difficult to draw our folks together, especially with part-time teachers and the like. But it is something that could really be worthwhile. If you want to go ahead to the next slide, Hannah. And just some ideas would be some study circles. And as I said, there's a lot of guidance and links on how to do study circles. If you just put that search in on study circles, it'll get that for you. Peer discussion. I think peer discussion where it's guided and you have specific topics. I think that could be really valuable. And then the online forums, discussion lists, blogs, social networking. I belong to, I think, 4 different links groups. And this is kind of what happens there. Somebody from California will post an issue that they're having in their classroom, and somebody from New York will hop on and present maybe something that's worked well for them. But it really does let you kind of interact with folks who are not all together in the same area. So do any of you have experience with teacher development groups?
The only thing I would say is we have peer discussions.
Good.
And that's like all the time.
Yeah.
That's an ongoing thing. That we discuss, what do you think is best? For example, today, what are we doing about teaching, coming up with after our registration and testing? What book are we going to? What the level is? Checking everything with CASAS or CASAS. Some people say, and see which one do you think would be best? Should we go to standout? Should we go to ventures?
Right.
Better? and look through the books. Do you think they can do this level? No, it's too high. Or even with the numbers, when
Yep.
you're discussing with the placement.
Yeah, exactly.
It's-
No, that's
it's-
tremendously valuable, and it's great that you're in an environment that allows that. If we can go to the next slide, Hannah. When we talk about what works for a good group, what makes a group successful, it sounds like you trust your members, you have the safety in that space, you have a common passion and mission. All of these things are really going to help the group to succeed.
Mhm.
And to make it even more formal, if you have some members in leader roles, maybe rotating leadership with a certain question or issue that's dealt with at each group session and kind of rolls through the group. And then confidentiality. I know I just finished our New York State group, our advocacy group, and that's a huge rule for us, is what we say in the room stays in the room, and that's really important. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So those are the three kind of tools for reflective practice, and we're going to just we only have 5 minutes left, so we'll just do some quick reflection on what and you've kind of already shared. Susan talked about the peer discussions, already doing reflective practice to support reflective practice. Violina talked about some of the notes that she takes as kind of a journaling exercise. Anything else that you want to share about what you're already doing to use reflective practice or to support reflective practice?
Well, I'll go. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I don't want to monopolize everything. I mean, I just am putting my 2 cents in.
We appreciate
I
it.
think, sharing, thank you. I think we really need to listen when others speak
Mhm.
and take that, and use that. And it's not only with other teachers or our peer group, we have to listen to the students too.
Yeah. That's a wonderful point. I appreciate that. Mhm. And listening as part of reflection, certainly they tie together. Yep. Anybody else have anything that they're currently doing that they'd like to share out? We can go ahead to the next slide, Hannah, if you'd like. So we've talked about the 3 different types of reflective practice. We talked about journaling and PAR and teacher groups. Is there one of these that appeals to you, something maybe that you haven't done before that you might want to try or to support? Anything you might want to try? You want to put together a PAR? You want to put together a teacher group, or maybe even do some journaling and work with others?
If there was more time, like 40 hours in a week, I think it would be, it would be great if we could have more time together with our peers, our other professionals, our colleagues we work with.
Yeah.
And sometimes there just isn't the time. I think time would be, but it all ties in together.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for the most part, adult education practitioners don't have paid planning time or any of the perks that are available to our P12 colleagues. And that if there were a way to maybe get a grant that could pay for time to maybe try some of these things, it might be something that would be a little more attractive to do. Because I know so many folks are working more than one job, and trying to get this kind of reflective practice really is a stretch. So again, challenges and opportunities. You said it, Susan. Challenges, time. Just really having the time to devote, but an opportunity, if there could be resource, I think that could be really helpful. You want to go to the next one? Is there anything that you're interested in finding out more about? What do you want to find out more about? And again, maybe as a links resource, there might be something that Hannah could suggest. They're more curious.
Perhaps retaining the students, that's a big issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and so see if there's any connection between the teacher reflection and student persistence and retaining those students. I think you definitely would see that. And Hannah, I'm sure there are, well, the resource that you talked about at the beginning, the persistence class, Motivating Adult Learners to Persist course, I think that could be really helpful from the links resources.
Yes, we're on the same page, Kathy. I was putting that in the chat at the exact
Good.
time that you were
Good.
saying
That
it. Yeah.
sounds great. Yeah. If we go on to the next slide. This is kind of our wrap-up slide. Again, I hope that you all get the chance to really take a look at the links resources. Again, they're geared for adult educators. They're geared for us, and so often we're looking at P12 and pulling things from there. This is stuff that really is created for the folks who work in the adult education world, and all of the links here. Hannah, and I think, I don't know if you wanted to go ahead and wrap up from the links point of view, but thank you so much for your attention and the practitioner side. Hannah?
Yeah, thank you everyone so much for your participation today. I really encourage you to go to that Links website after you sign out today, get a Links account if you don't have one yet, and explore some of these great free resources that are available to you. Huge thank you to Kathy for facilitating the webinar today and for sharing her expertise with us. And thank you to MACAE, I'm going to get the initials wrong, Don, MACAE, for inviting us to be a part of the presentation.
MACAE.
And
Yep.
what did you say, Don?
It's MACAE.
MACAE, you go with.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, there's more than 3 in there. So thank you to MACAE for inviting us to be a part of the presentation.
And Susan's looking for the link to the sketches, so it's for the PD.
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the chat here.
Thank you, Dawn.
You are welcome.
Because I heard
All right.
signing off and go, no, wait.
Yep. Nope. There's the link for you.
Okay, let me see if I can locate it and then I can click right on it. I got the Google one there. Oh man. Nope, don't see it.
I didn't get it either.
In the chat, I'm seeing it.
Yeah. Nope.
I got it, that's Google, but when I clicked, it doesn't open. My computer says something with the cookie settings.
You have to press, it says reply, and then it opened up actually.
Oh.
Is that the document that says google.com?
Yeah, it's a Google form, it looks like.
It's a Google form. Yeah.
If that works.
So I
You
think
mean-
Sandy said if you click in the reply box, then you can open it. Is that
How's that?
click in the reply box?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I go back to the Google Docs and open it again.
Yeah, I was able to open it, and I don't even get any credit for this. Yeah, I was able to click it open.
I don't know. It's about